Welcome to our comprehensive guide on delegated legislation, a cornerstone of administrative law. In today's complex governance landscape, the legislative powers of the executive have expanded significantly. Delegated legislation refers to the process where legislative powers are transferred from the main legislative body to administrative authorities. This practice has become essential due to the increasing volume and technicality of modern laws. Throughout this video, we'll explore why delegated legislation is necessary, its types, constitutional limits, and the principles of natural justice that underpin fair administrative action. Parliament alone cannot handle the sheer volume and complexity of modern legislation. Emergencies may arise that require swift action, and Parliament's procedures are often too slow for urgent situations. Additionally, many legislative matters are highly technical, demanding expertise that Parliament members may not possess. Delegated legislation allows experts and administrative agencies to create detailed rules and regulations, ensuring that laws remain effective and adaptable to changing circumstances. This flexibility is crucial for addressing unforeseen challenges and making timely amendments. Times of crisis, such as natural disasters or public health emergencies, the need for immediate legislative action becomes apparent. Delegated legislation empowers the executive to respond rapidly, bypassing lengthy parliamentary debates. This ensures that necessary measures can be implemented without delay, safeguarding public welfare. While the speed is beneficial, it also underscores the importance of checks and balances to prevent misuse of power. Many areas of modern governance, such as environmental regulation, finance, and technology, involve intricate technical details. Legislators may not have the specialized knowledge needed to draft effective rules in these domains. Delegated legislation allows administrative experts to fill this gap, ensuring that regulations are both practical and enforceable. This division of labor enhances the quality and relevance of laws. Delegated legislation introduces much-needed flexibility into the legal system. If a rule or regulation proves ineffective or problematic, it can be quickly amended or repealed by the administrative authority. This adaptability is vital in a fast-changing society, allowing the law to evolve based on experience and feedback. Statutes often include removal of difficulty clauses, empowering the executive to address unforeseen challenges efficiently. Despite its advantages, delegated legislation has faced criticism. Some jurists argue that it centralizes power and threatens individual liberties by placing significant authority in the hands of the executive. Concerns about arbitrary or irresponsible rulemaking have been raised, with critics warning of potential tyranny. However, high-level committees have concluded that with proper safeguards and vigilance, delegated legislation is both valuable and necessary. Delegated legislation refers to all lawmaking by authorities other than the legislature, such as the central or state governments, administrative boards, and other bodies. It encompasses rules, regulations, bylaws, orders, and notifications. The scope of delegated legislation is broad, covering both the process of rulemaking and the resulting legal instruments. This dual aspect is crucial for understanding how administrative law operates in practice. Delegated legislation is characterized by its reliance on express authority granted by the legislature. While it enhances administrative efficiency, it must operate within defined limits. The legislature cannot abdicate its essential lawmaking functions, such as setting policy, but can delegate non-essential details. The line between essential and non-essential functions is often debated, but the principle remains that core legislative responsibilities must stay with the legislature. The Constitution of India, through Articles 245 and 246, assigns legislative powers to Parliament and state legislatures. Delegation of legislative power is recognized as inevitable and is not prohibited. Article 13(3)(a) clarifies that law includes rules, regulations, and notifications, which can be struck down if they violate fundamental rights. Courts have upheld the practice of delegated legislation, provided it stays within constitutional boundaries. While delegation is permitted, it must not include essential legislative functions like determining policy or the fundamental structure of the law. Only non-essential details, such as procedures and implementation mechanisms, can be delegated. The legislature must provide clear guidance and standards to the executive, ensuring that the core intent of the law is preserved. History of delegated legislation dates back to the Statute of Proclamation in 1539, which gave Henry VII broad legislative powers. Other early examples include the Statute of Sewers in 1531. However, significant growth in delegated legislation began in the 19th century, especially with the Poor Law Amendment Act of 1834. Over time, the practice expanded, and by the 20th century, it became a standard feature of modern governance. Delegated legislation can be classified into normal and exceptional types. Normal delegation involves clearly defined powers, such as setting forms or administrative details, while exceptional delegation grants broad or undefined powers, sometimes even allowing amendments to primary legislation. The Henry VII Clause is a notable example of exceptional delegation, where administrative authorities are empowered to make significant changes to existing law. Skeleton delegation: the legislature outlines broad principles and leaves the executive to fill in the details through rules and regulations. This approach allows for flexibility and adaptability, as the executive can respond to changing circumstances without waiting for new legislation. The Mines and Minerals Regulation and Development Act 1948 is a classic example of skeleton delegation. Machinery-type delegation is the most common form, where the legislature delegates authority to administrative departments to manage procedural aspects like forms, publication methods, and administrative details. The limits of such delegation are clearly defined, ensuring that the executive does not overstep its bounds or alter the core principles of the law. Exceptional delegation occurs when the executive is granted powers that are vast or difficult to define, or when judicial control is excluded. The Henry VII clause is a prime example, allowing the executive to extend, modify, or restrict existing laws. The Supreme Court has ruled that such delegation is invalid if it interferes with the essential policy of the Act, but valid if it only addresses non-essential details. Local bodies and corporations often have the power to make bylaws for their administration. However, these bylaws can be struck down as ultra vires or beyond their legal power on several grounds: improper procedure, conflict with existing laws, uncertainty, or unreasonableness. This ensures that delegated legislation remains within the bounds set by the enabling statute. Subordinate legislation refers to rules and regulations made by authorities under powers delegated by Parliament. In England, all legislation not made by Parliament is considered subordinate. Types include colonial, executive, municipal, judicial, and autonomous legislation. Each type serves specific administrative needs and is subject to varying degrees of control by the sovereign legislature. Colonial legislation is made by self-governing colonies under the Crown, subject to imperial control. Executive legislation involves rules made by the executive under delegated powers. Municipal legislation consists of bylaws made by local authorities. Judicial legislation includes rules made by courts for their procedures. Autonomous bodies may also make bylaws for their governance, reflecting the diversity of subordinate legislative mechanisms. There are constitutional limits to legislative delegation. The legislature cannot delegate essential functions such as determining legislative policy. Only non-essential functions like extending statutes or making procedural rules can be delegated. The power conferred must not amount to excessive delegation, and courts assess whether the limits of permissible delegation have been respected. Conditional legislation occurs when the legislature enacts a law but authorizes an external authority to bring it into force at a time or place of its choosing. The law is complete, but its operation depends on the fulfillment of certain conditions. This differs from delegated legislation, where the executive fills in the details. Conditional legislation ensures that laws are implemented flexibly, based on administrative needs. Delegated legislation, while necessary, carries risks of abuse and arbitrariness. Therefore, several control mechanisms exist: procedural, parliamentary, and judicial. These controls ensure that delegated powers are exercised properly and within legal limits. Vigilant oversight by courts and legislatures is essential to maintain the balance between efficiency and accountability. Procedural control involves ensuring that delegated authorities follow proper procedures when making rules. This includes prior consultation with affected parties, publicizing proposed rules, and publishing final regulations. These steps promote transparency and allow for feedback, reducing the risk of arbitrary or unfair rulemaking. Parliamentary control is exercised through mechanisms like laying rules before Parliament and scrutiny by specialized committees. In India, as in England, rules made by the executive must be presented to Parliament, which can annul or modify them. Committees examine whether the rules align with the objectives of the Enabling Act and whether they impose taxes or affect fundamental rights. Judicial control over delegated legislation is exercised primarily through the doctrine of ultra vires and the use of prerogative writs. Courts can strike down rules that exceed the powers granted by the enabling statute or violate constitutional rights. This serves as a crucial check on the executive, ensuring that delegated legislation remains within legal boundaries. Legislature cannot delegate its essential functions, such as formulating legislative policy or setting legal standards. It must provide clear guidance to the executive, ensuring that delegated powers are used to implement, not alter, the core intent of the law. Courts have consistently upheld this principle, striking down statutes that confer excessive or vague powers. Excessive delegation occurs when the legislature fails to set clear policy or standards, or grants arbitrary power to the executive. This undermines the principle of separation of powers and can lead to invalidation of the statute. Courts examine whether the legislature has abdicated its responsibility or provided sufficient guidance for the exercise of delegated powers. Natural justice is a foundational concept in administrative law, ensuring fairness in legal and administrative proceedings. It traces its roots to ancient civilizations and has evolved to emphasize procedural fairness, impartiality, and the right to be heard. Natural justice serves as a safeguard against arbitrary or biased decision-making, reinforcing the legitimacy of administrative actions. While there is no single definition of natural justice, its core principles include fair play in action, impartiality, and the right to a fair hearing. Courts in England and India have used terms like fairness, common fairness, and fundamental justice to describe these principles. The essence of natural justice is to ensure that justice is not only done but seen to be done. Natural justice is closely linked to fairness in administrative processes. It requires that procedures be just, fair, and reasonable, ensuring that individuals are treated equitably. This concept is flexible and adapts to different legal systems and contexts, always aiming to prevent injustice and protect individual rights. Law provides the framework for justice, while natural justice ensures that procedures are fair. Natural justice supplements the law, filling gaps where statutes may be silent on procedural safeguards. Courts may read principles of natural justice into statutes to prevent unfairness, reinforcing the humanizing aspect of law. Main principles of natural justice are the rule against bias and the right to a fair hearing. These rules ensure that decision-makers are impartial and that affected parties have an opportunity to present their case. Violations of these principles can render administrative actions invalid, highlighting their importance in upholding justice. Rule against bias requires that administrative authorities act impartially, without personal, pecuniary, subject matter, or departmental bias. Any decision made by a biased authority is liable to be set aside. This rule is fundamental to maintaining public confidence in the fairness of administrative processes. Doctrine of audi alteram partem, meaning hear the other side, is a core rule of natural justice. It ensures that no one is condemned unheard. The right to notice and a fair hearing is essential before any adverse action is taken. This doctrine applies to all administrative actions that affect individual rights unless expressly excluded by statute. Fair hearing involves several stages: notice to the affected person, an opportunity to present their case, and a reasoned decision by the authority. Failure to provide notice or a hearing can invalidate administrative action. The courts have emphasized the importance of these procedural safeguards in numerous cases. There are exceptions to the application of natural justice. In cases of emergency, policy decisions, or where statutory provisions exclude it, the right to a fair hearing may be limited. However, courts retain the power to review such exclusions, ensuring that they do not violate constitutional principles or result in injustice. Civil services play a vital role in implementing government policies and ensuring administrative efficiency. The quality of public institutions depends largely on the competence and professionalism of civil servants. Their functions include advising the political executive, planning and executing programs, and exercising delegated legislative and adjudicatory powers. Civil servants advise ministers, plan and execute government programs, and ensure the smooth functioning of administration. They are responsible for operational planning, production of services, and maintaining work standards. Their expertise is crucial for translating legislative intent into practical outcomes. With the expansion of the welfare state, civil servants have been entrusted with significant delegated legislative powers. They draft detailed rules and regulations under the framework set by Parliament, ensuring that laws are effectively implemented. This delegation is essential for managing the complexities of modern governance. Civil servants also exercise adjudicatory powers, resolving disputes and enforcing regulations. Administrative adjudication involves quasi-judicial functions, such as conducting inquiries and imposing penalties. This role is vital for maintaining order and ensuring compliance with laws and regulations. Disciplinary action ensures accountability among public servants. It covers acts amounting to crimes such as embezzlement or corruption, as well as misconduct like insubordination or misbehavior. Disciplinary proceedings follow a structured process including investigation, hearing, and the opportunity to appeal. Disciplinary actions can be informal, such as reassignment or closer supervision, or formal, involving penalties like censure, withholding promotions, or dismissal. The severity of the penalty depends on the nature of the offense and the evidence presented during the inquiry. Articles 309, 310, and 311 of the Indian Constitution govern the recruitment, conditions of service, and disciplinary actions for civil servants. These provisions ensure due process, protect against arbitrary dismissal, and guarantee the right to a fair hearing before penalties are imposed. Disciplinary process involves several steps: calling for an explanation, framing charges, possible suspension, conducting a hearing, delivering findings, providing an opportunity to respond to proposed penalties, issuing the final order, and allowing for appeals. This structured approach ensures fairness and transparency in handling misconduct. Common issues in disciplinary proceedings include lack of knowledge about procedures, delays in action, lack of fair play, withholding of appeals, and inconsistency in penalties. Addressing these challenges is essential for maintaining integrity and trust in public administration. In summary, delegated legislation is a vital tool for modern governance, enabling efficient and expert rulemaking while maintaining legislative oversight. The principles of natural justice ensure fairness and accountability in administrative actions. Civil services play a crucial role in implementing laws and maintaining discipline within the public sector. By understanding these concepts, we appreciate the balance between flexibility, efficiency, and the protection of individual rights in administrative law.